What's up everyone, this is Dariusz Kalbarczyk, co-founder of MG Poland, JS Poland, AngularMaster.dev and WorkshopFest.dev. Welcome back to the JavaScript Master Podcast. Today we've got a special guest from Poland, speaker, mountain bike lover, senior software engineer at JetBrains. Ladies and gentlemen, Piotr Tomiak. Hi Piotr, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Yeah, thank you. For those who don't know you yet, please tell us about yourself.
I'm a senior software developer at JetBrains. I work mainly on WebStorm product, and I work remotely from Poland, from Bielsko-Biała, that's located south of Poland. And I wouldn't change the city for anything else. It's, I think, the only big city in mountains, and I love enduro biking. So I have like 10 minutes to tracks here. So it's a wonderful place to live.
Please tell us about how you started your adventure in programming.
Have you ever heard about a language called Turbo Pascal?
Yes.
Okay, So yeah, I was like 10 or 11 years old back then, and I had a friend. He was much older, and he was doing some coding. He was doing games in Turbo Pascal. So I was like, with my brother, we also wanted to do some games. So I had a lot of luck with a really good handbook for Turbo Pascal, and it was pretty cool. That's how my adventure started. And later on, my teacher introduced me to Delphi, another Borland tool, and I started to do some plugins for Delphi even. So yeah, that's basically how it started.
Delphi was also my first language. So.
Yeah, it was really cool. Right now, I mean, it had this custom properties, for instance, or things like that. And I find that really nicely implemented only in Kotlin, and it's like, I don't know, like 20 years later. So it was really cool language, and I really regret that they haven't managed to actually make it multi-platform. It never worked, really. So.
Yeah, exactly. What excites you about developing an IDE?
It started with Delphi, actually, because I started doing plugins for Delphi. Later on, during my university years, I had a really interesting project with my physics teacher. It was about simulations, and he wanted to kind of build the model in Delphi. So I created a library for him of components, and he was like building the model. So this was really cool. And I think I was always kind of a desktop guy. So I kind of stayed on this desktop side when everyone was going to the web. And it's also like a lot of luck, actually. So I started to work with Genuitech. I don't know if anyone recognizes this company, but at some point they were really big in terms of Eclipse IDEs, and they were doing pretty cool stuff for Java EE and in the Java world anyway. So it just went this way, and it's actually, it's really challenging to some degree, because you're not only like you don't only have to know your own environment, right? Like how to write plugins, okay? So how to parse syntax in files. But you also need a really deep knowledge of a particular framework you want to support. So I can do applications in Angular, But when it comes to architectural challenges of Angular, I mean, I don't really know much. But when it comes to technical details of what you can do in syntax and things like that, I know a lot, okay? And the same comes for, I don't know, Vue or other frameworks. So it's really exciting because I don't only stay in my field of expertise, but I also know a lot about web technologies because I have to, because I need to support them. And I also learn a lot from users. So you talk a lot to the users, and those are lovely users because those are programmers, okay? And you cannot imagine a better user of a software than a programmer. So yeah, so that's what's really exciting about IDE development, at least for me.
What is WebStorm?
It's the smartest IDE for JavaScript. So basically, this is the IDE for JavaScript, and there is a difference between IDE and editor. Okay, in editor is a more lightweight and not only lightweight in the way you perceive the application, but also lightweight in terms of what it can provide you. Okay, IDE is more for is something which kind of allows you to cover all the stages of development, right? From code completion through debugging to profiling, and yeah, that's basically what WebStorm is about. It's about assisting people on every stage of developing a JavaScript application without doing much of the configuration. We always try everything to be kind of ready and there for the users, because yeah, if something is not intuitive, then it won't be ever discovered.
What's the story behind WebStorm?
So I had a look into our repository, kind of figure out what's the story, because like I wasn't in JetBrains when the WebStorm was coming out. Okay, so I joined JetBrains around 4 years ago. JetBrains started as a refactoring tool for Java. It was like just refactoring tool. And then on top of that, a whole IDE was built. Okay, and HTML, JS, and CSS support was there in around 2005. But when in 2009, Google announced the V8 engine for JavaScript and Node came to the life, and then NPM, and the whole JavaScript environment actually has been created, because previously it was just a browser experience, right? And we had support for Java, Java EE, and that's where the whole JavaScript stuff was going on. And then like JavaScript happened to be a separate thing, right? On its own. So that's when an idea for a JavaScript dedicated IDE came up. And in 2010, first version of WebStorm has been released. And the fun fact that before it was called actually Web IDE. So in our when we were developing it, like a code name was Web IDE. So basically, that's how it started. It was dedicated IDE for JavaScript with dedicated Node support, which was a very how to say it, the Node support was in early stages there. I mean, Node itself was in very early stages, and so we were with JavaScript from the very beginning, basically.
What does it mean that WebStorm is the smartest IDE?
So the thing is that, well, I know that it's kind of a word, right? That everything has to be smart, even the phone, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that we try to make, and I think to a lot of extent we succeed, to kind of anticipate what the developer needs at a particular moment of time. So you have a lot of intentions, quick fixes, right? And one of the very cool things, if you discover it finally, right, and this is this Alt-Enter thing, is that many of the very, I would say, tedious, monotonous things you can actually do with an intention. So, for instance, you have a string concatenation, right? Something foo plus some whatever. It's a string concatenation, and you would like to make it a string template. And so you just do Alt-Enter, convert to string template, and you don't have to do that, all this tedious work, right? Once you get accustomed to this kind of smartness that there is this refactoring which works, that there is this intentions, you actually get annoyed when it's not there, right? When the IDE is not smart enough. So I think this is what we aim as the smartest IDE, that the thing you need is there when you need it, basically.
What's new coming in WebStorm 2022.3?
I told you about this lightness, right? That the editor and the IDE, there is this thing that you think that editor is more lightweight, right? So one of the main goals for us, and we started with .3, is to make WebStorm and other IDEs lightweight. And we always work on the performance improvements, but with 2022.3, you can expect huge performance improvements, because the whole JetBrains team works on improving performance. You can expect new UI, which is lightweight. I mean, it's a huge difference, and you can feel that it's much closer to the editor lightness, but you still have all the IDE experience, which is integrated debugging, profiling. I don't know, all this stuff you would expect from IDE. So that's like a main goals for us. And we of course work on a lot of features and bug fixes all the time. One of the big things is type narrowing support for Angular. So finally there, it's I know it's been a long-awaited feature for Angular templates. It's finally there. We're also going to have some nice things for TypeScript, like it's called code vision. You get immediate statistics like number of usage count next to the field, or things like that. And maybe not so interesting for Angular, but we're also doing a lot of improvements for Vue. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. Support for Vite, for Next.js, a lot of cool features coming in.
What are your plans for the future?
Heavily improve support for frameworks, and to keep up with TypeScript. I mean, with every single new release of TypeScript, there is new syntax to support. So it's a constant thing. We actually have our own type evaluation engine. Okay, so to support all these things like Angular templates, we don't actually use TypeScript language service. Or to support refactoring between Vue templates, like you have a variable in a Vue template, and it can be refactored across TypeScript files and Vue files. The same for Angular. For React, we actually have our own engine to evaluate, to parse TypeScript, to evaluate types, and that's a huge maintenance burden as well. So we keep up to date with TypeScript. And we invest a lot into even better support for Vue, Angular, React, Svelte. That's with Angular, maybe it's a little bit less like catching with with the new syntax or things like that, because Angular is quite stable. So we will definitely add a lot of new features. One of upcoming is the type guards, so type narrowing. There is a lot of things to optimize performance, and that's people are building larger and larger projects, and we always find something when from support. We have our own projects, right? But there is always some interesting case where this one particular thing there is like a huge time sink, and we need to optimize it. So it's also like we also try to do a lot of support for the users, and we analyze every performance issue. So if you actually have some, don't hesitate to write to our support, because, well, we can actually help and improve.
Why you decide to use your own parser for TypeScript?
I'm not entirely sure why it has been decided, because it has been decided 10 years ago.
Okay.
But the thing is that the big difference between IntelliJ IDEs and VS Code is that every language support shares a common framework. So there is a common framework to analyze all languages, and we can very easily actually analyze template files, because in our parse tree we can inject TypeScript under HTML elements, and we can say that this HTML attribute is actually a name of the pipe which is defined in TypeScript literal. And thanks to that unified PSI structure, we can do really crazy stuff like Angular pipes rename, or everything basically. And the funny thing is that when Angular was migrating to the new Ivy engine, we could actually provide support, I don't know, within a month or two. And as far as I know, please correct me, it took around a year for the Angular team to actually catch up with us. So that's one of the reasons why we keep our own TypeScript support, because we can do a lot more with that. And we can, for instance, we can find usages of the TypeScript properties in Angular files, or you can find CSS classes usages in Angular file. Even if you do this, class dot thing, this bind the class in Angular, you can actually get CSS class there, and we will find the usage. And if you rename the usage, it will get renamed, refactored. So yeah, that's the main reason why we do things like that. And it's not only TypeScript; we also have our own Angular parser and our own Vue parser.
You're listening, JavaScript Master Podcast. Listen, code, repeat. Everything you need to know to become an JavaScript super developer.
The best way to start learning WebStorm.
I think on our YouTube page, you will find a lot of stuff. That's the first place. Second, there are some courses of WebStorm on the paid sites, of course. So I would check there. And we also have this, the WebStorm Twitter thing where we post some nice feature highlight of the week or something like that. So it's always a nice thing to discover new features. When you move to the WebStorm, I think the biggest challenge is, for me, it was shortcuts. because I was moving from Eclipse shortcuts to the IntelliJ shortcuts, WebStorm shortcuts. But it took around, 3-4 days, and I switched. If you are used to the, let's say VS Code, right? You know what features to expect, okay? And then you switch to WebStorm, and WebStorm will have, in many areas, a lot more features. So what I would suggest is just learning what you can do, actually. And for that, definitely our tutorials, our documentation would be the best way to start with.
Amazing. How much of your work is dedicated to adjusting to the changes in the market, and how much of implementing new ideas for improvements?
We try to balance that, right? So the improvements are very important, because this is what keeps our users satisfied, right? We want a better Angular support. We want better Vue support. We want better TypeScript support. So I would say 50-50. And these are actually connected, because if the market moves to the new framework, then we also add more, invest more into the framework. There is also this thing called, so for instance, one of the examples where we actually spend a lot of time implementing our ideas are web types. I'm not sure whether you heard about it. Maybe if we first started it with Vue, and then we're at the stage where it's a metadata format for actually any framework or any component. And we're still improving that, and we're trying to kind of convince community to use that. So recently I did contribute web types for Vue Bootstrap library, where and Vue Bootstrap has interesting components where you have icon components, right? You type B icon, and then you type the name of the icon. And I always find it really cumbersome to go to the documentation site and look for the icon there, right? So what I supported is that you can actually press Control Space, and you will get the names along with the SVG icons. So you can see the icons directly in the IDE. And this is some of our ideas we have for like improving experience of developers. Which I don't know, maybe this is cool, maybe not. Let's see. But yeah, I would say it's like 50-50, because we have to listen to the customers what they want. But sometimes we also need to figure out what they want but don't know about.
Okay. What would you like to our listeners to remember about WebStorm from this talk?
For those who are not using WebStorm yet, I would say it's really worth trying. And last time I checked, it was worth 3 cafe latte per month. So it's maybe it's not open sourced. I mean, some parts of it are open source. So Angular Vue support are open sourced. The platform is open sourced. Some is closed sourced. But I think, it's worth trying. And I personally think it's worth also paying for the product if you get the quality you want. There is always some, friction with open source where you don't get support which you need, etc. So I would say let's try and see if you're satisfied.
Amazing. So my last question is 2 books you would to recommend to our listeners, one technical and one non-technical.
Okay, so I think I won't be very original if I recommend The Clean Code by Robert Martin. That's a book based on Java language, but I believe it's not that difficult to interpolate it for TypeScript, JavaScript, or any other language. So I think that's the only technical book which was really worth reading for me. I maybe not read a lot of technical books, but this one was really, really, really good and taught me a lot. And I'm actually doing a lot of this clean code techniques, and it actually helps with, speed of development, because, you also have to read your code after 1 month, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. So that for Polish readers, and I have 2 books here, non-technical.
Okay.
I'm not sure about translations, and because this is the language is so beautiful at Citra. So for Polish readers, I would recommend Na Lentulm by Sapkowski. I'm not sure about translations, so I cannot recommend them. I'm not sure how good is the English translation. As far as Polish one, as far as original, I think it's better than Witcher, at least for me. It's much more funnier, and like the Sapkowski with each Witcher book, he was getting better, and Narenturm was after that, and he was just brilliant.
The best, yeah.
I really love fantasy and science fiction and things like that, and there are a lot of writers which I could recommend. And I don't know, like Orson Scott Card or Terry Goodkind, or a lot of them. But recently, my friend actually gave me as a present 3 Body Problem by Sijin Liu. And it's science fiction, but I really loved it. I'm more fantasy guy, not that much science fiction, but I really loved it. And it really tried to keep, I also studied physics. So I'm like, sometimes I don't like science fiction because it's like not really keeping up to the reality. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the 3 Body Problem is really good.
I have to check it. Definitely, I have to check it. Okay, Piotr, thank you so much for this great discussion.
Thank you for the invitation. It was really cool talking to you.
Yeah, and we see at NG Poland and JS Poland very soon in person. So
yeah, finally after all these years, right? 2 years, but
exactly. One more time, thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Finally, please subscribe to our podcast, leave a like and a comment to help us continue to grow.